Ladies and gentlemen, leadership is not just a position. It's a mindset, a responsibility, and a journey. Whether you're leading a company, a team, a classroom, or even just your own life, the decisions you make and the person you become along the way define the kind of leader you truly are. Today, I want to share 11 life-changing ideas, powerful insights that can shape your leadership and transform your path forward. Let me start with a truth that every aspiring leader must hear. You cannot lead others effectively if you have not first learned to lead yourself. Leadership begins not in the boardroom, not on social media, and not in your job title. It begins in the quiet, private decisions you make when no one is watching. Self-leadership is the foundation of all true leadership. It means taking ownership of your thoughts, your emotions, your time, your habits, and your energy. It means asking yourself the hard questions. Am I living with discipline? Am I aligned with my values? Am I doing what I expect of others? Many people want to lead others because they crave power or recognition. But real leadership starts when you hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone else ever will. When you begin to demand excellence from yourself in every small area, how you wake up, how you speak to people, how you respond to adversity, that's when you begin to earn the right to lead. Think about it. How can you expect others to be focused if you're constantly distracted? How can you demand commitment from your team if you yourself cut corners when it's convenient? How can you inspire others to be strong in the face of challenges if you panic at the first sign of discomfort? Self-leadership is about personal accountability. It's waking up early when you want to sleep in. It's sticking to your commitments even when no one would know if you gave up. It's learning to silence the inner critic, focus the wandering mind, and keep moving forward when everything in you wants to stop. It's also about managing your emotions. Great leaders don't allow anger, fear, or insecurity to drive their decisions. They feel everything, but they pause, reflect, and act with intention. Emotional maturity is a key ingredient of self-leadership, and it's something that's built over time through awareness and discipline. And let's talk about discipline for a moment. Not the kind that comes from outside pressure, but the internal discipline that pushes you to do the hard things, even when they're inconvenient. That's the kind of leadership the world needs more of. Some of the most successful leaders in history, people like Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr., were first and foremost masters of themselves. They endured pain, hardship, and opposition, but never lost command over their own character. They led themselves through fear, uncertainty, and self-doubt, and in doing so, earned the strength to lead millions. So, if you want to lead teams, businesses, or movements, start by leading your mornings. Lead your choices, lead your focus, lead your words, lead your mindset, lead your heart, because the world doesn't need more bosses. It needs leaders who walk their talk, and that leadership starts with you. If you're serious about becoming a leader, here's one uncomfortable truth. Comfort and leadership do not coexist. The very essence of leadership is rooted in discomfort, because it requires seeing what others don't, doing what others won't, and believing in a future that others can't yet see. Comfort is the enemy of growth, and leaders are not called to stay safe. They are called to pioneer, stretch, and transform. They are visionaries, and vision doesn't live in the past or in the present. It lives in the possibility of what could be. But here's the catch. Vision often demands that you walk away from comfort. It demands you challenge the status quo. It asks you to risk rejection, step into uncertainty, and sometimes stand alone with only your convictions to guide you. You see, anyone can stay where they are. Anyone can play it safe. But leadership is about movement. It's about creating a new reality. It starts when you dare to dream boldly and then discipline yourself to chase that dream with relentless consistency. Leaders don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't ask for permission to believe in more. Instead, they set their eyes on a higher horizon and say, "This is where we're going, even if it's difficult, even if it's unpopular, even if it hasn't been done before." Comfort whispers things like, "Stay where it's safe. What if you fail? Don't rock the boat." But vision speaks louder. It says, "People need you to lead. This can be better. You are made for more." Ask yourself right now, is your life driven by your comfort or by your vision? Are your daily decisions designed to protect your ease, or are they meant to stretch you toward purpose? Every world-changing leader, from Steve Jobs to Malala Yousafzai, had a vision that was bigger than their need to feel safe. They walked through fire. They took unpopular stances. They made sacrifices. And why? Because their vision meant something. So if you're aspiring to lead, I challenge you to define your vision. Don't just focus on avoiding pain. Focus on creating impact. Write that vision down, make it clear, make it bold, and then start living in alignment with it every single day. Don't let comfort become a cage. Let vision become your fuel. Leadership isn't just about making decisions. It's about moving people. And the tool you'll use most often, whether you're in a meeting, on stage, or one is communication. But not just any communication, impactful communication. What does that mean? It means you speak with clarity, purpose, and intention. It means your words don't just fill silence. They ignite action, build trust, and create alignment. Because here's the truth: people don't follow titles. They follow those who can communicate vision, direction, and belief with authenticity. Impactful communication begins with listening. Yes, great leaders are even better listeners. They don't just wait for their turn to speak. They truly hear what others are saying, and even what they're not saying. They read between the lines. They ask the right questions. They show people that their voices matter. But when it is time to speak, a leader's words carry weight. They choose words that inspire, not intimidate. That clarify, not confuse. That unite, not divide. Now, you don't need to be the loudest in the room to have presence. In fact, some of the most powerful leaders are soft, spoken but laser, focused in their message. It's not about volume, it's about value. When you speak with honesty, conviction, and clarity, people listen. They don't just hear your words, they feel your message. Here's a hard truth: poor communication creates chaos. Misunderstandings, misalignment, and mistrust all stem from unclear messages. That's why great leaders take time to craft their message. They think before they speak. They tailor their language to their audience. And they speak not just to inform, but to connect. Communication is also nonverbal. Your body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, all of it speaks before you even open your mouth. Leaders communicate confidence, calm, and certainty even in silence. And people notice. In the digital age, where attention is short and noise is loud, leaders must learn to cut through with precision and empathy. Whether it's an email to a colleague, a team huddle, a keynote speech, or a difficult conversation, how you communicate can either build bridges or burn them. So ask yourself, do your words uplift or discourage? Do you speak with confidence or confusion? Do people feel understood after talking to you? To become a powerful leader, you must become a powerful communicator, not through manipulation, but through authenticity and clarity. Because when you learn to communicate with impact, you don't just speak, you lead. There's a common misconception about leadership, that it's about power, about being the boss, about giving orders and expecting others to follow. But that's not leadership, that's authority. And authority without service leads to fear, not loyalty. Real leadership is servant leadership. It's built on the simple but powerful idea that your role is not to sit above others, but to lift them up. It's not about commanding people to move, it's about inspiring them to want to. The most impactful leaders in history, from Nelson Mandela to Mother Teresa, were not remembered because they gave orders. They are remembered because they gave themselves, they served, they sacrificed, they made others feel seen, heard, and valued. And that's why people followed them, willingly, wholeheartedly, and with trust. Serving before commanding means flipping the traditional leadership model on its head. Instead of asking, "What can people do for me?" a true leader asks, "What can I do for my people? How can I make their lives easier? How can I remove the barriers they face? How can I help them grow?" It means stepping in when no one else will. It means taking responsibility when things go wrong and giving credit to others when things go right. It means checking your ego at the door and asking yourself, "Am I here to be impressive or to be impactful?" Service also builds credibility. When people see you roll up your sleeves and work alongside them, when they know you'll never ask them to do something you wouldn't do yourself, they respect you on a deeper level. They trust you. And trust is the currency of leadership. Now let's be clear. Serving doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It doesn't mean you have to say yes to everything or avoid making tough decisions. But it does mean that your decisions are guided by empathy and intention, not pride or self-interest. In practical terms, servant leadership might look like taking time to mentor a struggling employee, listening without judgment when your team is under pressure, admitting when you've made a mistake, prioritizing people over profit without sacrificing excellence. The result, you don't just build a team, you build a culture where people feel safe, empowered, and motivated to give their best. And that kind of culture doesn't happen by command. It happens through consistent, humble service. So if you truly want to lead, start by serving. Be the first to show up, the last to leave, the one who listens more than they speak. Because in the end, leadership isn't about being above others. It's about being there for them. One of the biggest traps for aspiring leaders is the pursuit of perfection. The illusion that you must always have the right answers, make flawless decisions, and never show weakness. But let me tell you something that every great leader eventually learns. Perfection is a myth, but growth is real. Perfection will paralyze you. It will stop you from starting, keep you from learning, and make you fear mistakes. It creates a false expectation that you must never stumble, never fail, never fall short. And when you chase that illusion, you don't just exhaust yourself. You disconnect from the very people you're trying to lead. Because guess what? People don't need perfect leaders. They need real ones. Leaders who admit when they're wrong, who learn from their failures, who are willing to evolve and grow in public. That's where true credibility comes from, not from flawlessness, but from authenticity and resilience. Growth, on the other hand, is a mindset. It says, "I may not know everything yet, but I'm willing to learn. I made a mistake, but I'll use it to become better. I've never done this before, but I'm open to trying." When you chase growth, you become a student of leadership, not just a practitioner. You read, you reflect, you ask for feedback, not just from your mentors, but from your team. You don't run from discomfort. You embrace it because you know it's where growth lives. And here's a powerful truth. Every mistake, every failure, every setback is a hidden classroom. Some of your most valuable lessons will come from the things that didn't go as planned. The key is not to avoid those moments, but to extract the wisdom they contain. Let me give you an example. Some of the greatest CEO, creators, and change makers failed big before they succeeded. They launched ideas that flopped, made decisions that backfired, or got rejected dozens of times. But what separated them wasn't that they were perfect. It's that they were relentless about growth. They learned faster than they failed. Chasing growth also sets the tone for your team. When your people see that you're learning, that you're adapting, that you're willing to grow, they feel safe to do the same. You create a culture of curiosity, innovation, and courage. And that's where extraordinary things begin to happen. So stop trying to be perfect. Start trying to get better every single day. Better in your thinking, better in your listening, better in your leadership. Perfection is the mask that hides fear. Growth is the path that reveals your true potential. There are two qualities that will keep you grounded and growing no matter how high you rise in leadership: humility and hunger. Let's start with humility, the quiet strength of a leader who doesn't need to boast, who doesn't seek the spotlight, and who doesn't pretend to have all the answers. Humility is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the realization that leadership isn't about being better than others. It's about being of service to others. A humble leader listens more than they speak. They ask for feedback, even from people below them on the ladder, because they know everyone has something to teach. They're not driven by ego, but by impact. They're not afraid to say, "I was wrong." And because of that honesty, their teams trust them more deeply. Now let's talk about hunger, the fire in your belly that says, "I'm not done yet." It's what drives you to improve, innovate, and push beyond what's expected. Hunger is the reason some people grow while others plateau. It keeps you learning, exploring, striving. Humble leaders don't think they've arrived, and hungry leaders don't want to arrive. They want to evolve. They're always asking, "How can I do this better? What can I learn from this experience? Where can I grow next?" But here's where the real power lies, when humility and hunger work together. Because hunger without humility is dangerous. It becomes ego. It turns into arrogance and blind ambition. It causes leaders to ignore their team, to make reckless decisions, to lose sight of their values. And humility without hunger can lead to stagnation. You might be kind and grounded, but if you're not moving forward, if you're not driven to make progress, you won't reach your potential, and you won't push others to reach theirs. When you combine both, you get a leader who is always learning and never boasting. Someone who celebrates success but never settles. Someone who leads with both confidence and compassion. Think of the greatest leaders you admire. Many of them have these two traits in common. They don't need applause. They don't stop at good enough. They carry themselves with quiet authority and bold ambition. They're constantly climbing, but their feet are still on the ground. So here's the challenge. Stay humble enough to listen, learn, and admit your mistakes. Stay hungry enough to chase excellence, improvement, and the next level of impact. Because in a world full of noise and ego, the leaders who leave the deepest legacy are those who serve with humility and rise with hunger. If there's one trait that separates managers from leaders, it's empathy, the ability to see, hear, and feel what others are going through. Empathy is not just a soft skill, it's a strategic superpower. In a world driven by rapid change, emotional burnout, and human complexity, leaders who lead with empathy build stronger teams, deeper trust, and lasting influence. On the other hand, ego is the silent killer of leadership. Ego says, "I already know." Ego says, "I'm more important." Ego demands respect, but rarely gives it. And worst of all, ego creates distance between you and your team, between you and reality, and eventually between you and success. Empathy, by contrast, closes that distance. It says, "Tell me how you're really doing. What do you need to thrive? How can I support you better?" Empathy allows you to connect, not control. It creates a space where people feel safe to be honest, to take risks, and to bring their full selves to work. And when people feel seen, they give more, not because they have to, but because they want to. A leader who leads with empathy listens not just to respond, but to understand. They watch body language, they pick up on stress signals, they don't just bark orders, They ask thoughtful questions. They're aware that every person they lead has a life outside of work, a family, a story, a struggle. That awareness transforms everything. It changes how you give feedback. It changes how you motivate. It even changes how you handle conflict. Because instead of reacting with frustration or dominance, you respond with curiosity and care. Now let's be clear. Empathy is not weakness. It's not about being overly soft or avoiding tough conversations. In fact, empathy gives you the emotional intelligence to handle those conversations better. It equips you to communicate truth without causing harm. It empowers you to correct without condemning. Ego, on the other hand, is rigid. It needs to be right. It demands attention. It hates being questioned. And over time, ego isolates leaders. You stop hearing the truth. People stop bringing you problems. They just nod and quietly disconnect. But empathetic leaders, they create cultures of openness. They attract loyalty, not just compliance. And they're not afraid to admit, I don't know everything. That humility invites collaboration, and that collaboration fuels innovation. So if you want to lead people well, set your ego aside and put your empathy forward. Be the kind of leader who listens more than they lecture, who asks before they assume, who connects before they correct, because leadership isn't about being above others, it's about being with them. And when people feel you're truly with them, they'll go far with you.